Have you ever been around a narcissistic person or have witnessed a character on a show or movie that shows narcissistic traits? Well, many people believe that being a narcissist is just someone who is full of themselves or just thinks highly of themselves. I will go more in depth with how narcissists are more than just a conceited person. So, what is narcissism? Narcissism can be described as a disorder and or a personality trait that is characterized by entitlement and conceit. So most often, this person will have um, highly thoughts of themselves. They will have this need and desire for admiration. They lack empathy when it comes to others, and they just generally believe that they're superior than other human beings. So, not many people may know this, but there are two subtypes of narcissism. So, there is the grandiose narcissism, which is more of like an arrogant and dominant side of narcissism, and then there is the vulnerable narcissism that we will go more in depth throughout this presentation. So, narcissism is often described as the modern epidemic. As you see, times have changed, social media has definitely developed, and people use it more to their own, best interest. And it has also made narcissism increase. It's described as a modern epidemic because the scores rose in the USA, for example, that this trend of narcissism has been fueled by the internet usage, such as Facebook, Instagram, and even TikTok, which is most associated with narcissism. As you see, people are very into, taking pictures of themselves and videos of themselves, which is not a bad thing, but there are some people that may overdo this and, to the point where it kind of just becomes narcissistic in a way. So the first journal that was read is Do Narcissistic Boys and Girls Differ in Their Aggression? And this is a 2020 article. It's the European Journal of Developmental Psychology. And as I was reading this article, it was based on studying the aggression of little boys and little girls who are narcissistic at a young age, and how both genders handled rejection, and how their narcissistic traits will show when they are rejected or victimized. And they had a sample of 372 younger, adolescents, and they were obtained, and the aggression that was reported was self and peer reported aggression. The results were elevated aggression when it came to the males, and the females were less aggressive when they were victimized or rejected. The second journal that I will be summarizing is from 2020 as well, and it's Seeking Attention versus Seeking Approval, how conspicuous consumption differs between grandiose and vulnerable narcissist, which is the two subtypes of narcissism. Narcissism is the personality trait where, someone is very entitled, and it has increased in society today. This article went more in depth with these two subtypes that exist. The grandiose narcissism is characterized by arrogance and dominance. And the vulnerable narcissism, which is characterized by social insecurity and reliance on feedback. So they both differ in self-esteem. The main difference between both is that grandiose narcissism is driven by a need or desire to be this uniqueness, which sometimes can fuel that high self-esteem of the individual, as compared to vulnerable narcissism. They will do anything to seek social approval and to avoid a disapproval, and kind of just, they use this social approval to kind of fuel from with their self-esteem. And there was this hypothesis test that was used in this journal it was like used with data with 382 participants, and the results had indicated that both subtypes of narcissism predicted that relationships between grandiose narcissism is their need for uniqueness, and compared to the vulnerable one, it's just for social approval. So basically, this hypothesis test really just came to show that it is true what these two subtypes are and what they both need, which is one needs more uniqueness to feel more of a higher self-esteem, and then the vulnerable narcissism needs the approval from society to feel like they're good enough, in other words. So this is a personal experience that I'm adding. I had a friend once who showed many personality traits of being a vulnerable narcissistic. She always felt the need to be approved by society and often looked for that approval. And it showed in the way she dressed, her views on situations, and what was trendy in this generation. She often didn't feel good enough to fit in society if she wasn't, doing things that were trendy. And when she did these trendy things, like, for example, how she dressed or how she portrayed herself, it had to be very trendy in what's going on now on social media for her to feel confident and overconfident and just have this really high self-esteem that even made her very not empathetic at all towards other people as well. Once she personally felt approved, her vulnerability seemed to change into a high self-esteem that no one could bring down. So I had many friends describe her as, she thought she was a social media influencer when she would wear what the social media influencers were wearing, for instance. And I tend to notice this a lot as I got to know my friend, and it really showed. I always knew it was a type of narcissism. I just never knew there was a vulnerable narcissism, which is pretty interesting to know. So the conclusion that I have gathered with my research with narcissism is that there is no doubt in mind that it has increased for sure in society now that social media is a huge part of everyone's lives now, and how society expects people to be and look a certain way to be approved. That was described as the modern epidemic. The great example I can use is Instagram. I think Instagram is the one social media platform that fuels narcissism extremely because it is just a photography app. There is this culture in Instagram where there are many influencers that kind of all look the same. They all have this surgery and most of these influencers are kind of just influenced by the Kardashians, for instance. So they do social media as Instagram. They do give society beauty standards, and it comes to show that people are very vulnerable on social media, and they seek this approval in order to feel a high self-esteem, to feel confident. And once people get this approval from social media, from society in general, it does increase narcissism now, with selfies, with videos and TikToks. People have completely become very self-obsessed nowadays because it's what's making the world go round right now on social media. People are getting paid for it on social media. A pretty girl or an attractive person can make just a pretty post on Instagram, and they make up to $1 million a post. So this is money, and just society is what makes narcissism increase now. Thank you so much.